guys, welcome and welcome back to my channel. So last time we talked about establishing our net worth, and that was important because it was supposed to help us to know where we are so that we're able to establish where we need to go and how we will get there, right? So after doing that, the next step, which you said is mandatory, is then doing your budget, all right? And we know there are so many other budgeting techniques that are out there, but the one that has worked for me is the 50-30-20 rule. This basically means that out of your net income, 50% goes to your mandatory bills, 30% goes to savings, investments, and debt repayment, whereas 20% goes to your wants, entertainment, giving, and miscellaneous, all those other expenditures that you do not foresee, all right? One thing I would like to state is that the first thing that you always make sure you do is to pay yourself. As soon as you receive your paycheck, or as soon as you get money from that business, the first thing that you need to do is to pay yourself. And what do I mean when I say pay yourself? Is that you should always save and or invest first before you spend. That way, you're paying yourself for the days that you've been working, all right? So after you pay yourself, then you can proceed to spending, all right? So in this scenario, we're going to use a hypothetical situation for someone who earns a net salary of 70,000, all right? If you earn 70,000, for example, and the first thing you need to do is to pay yourself, that means 30% of that, which is 20K, goes into savings and investment. You can decide how you want to split that, right? You can probably have 5,000 in an emergency fund, you can have 10,000 in money markets, you can have another 5,000 in a retirement or pension fund. That is totally up to you. You choose or you decide how you want to spend your savings, all right? So what I want us to do when you're doing a budget, first of all, list all your sources of income. And if you did my assignment yesterday, chances are you've already realized that you are the only income generating asset that you have, right? Which is not a good thing to have, because that then means if something happens to you, you do not have more money or you do not have any money to spend. And it is for this reason that you need to ensure that you always pay yourself first, okay? And if you pay yourself first, then you can easily diversify and have other sources of income, all right? So for someone who only has a net salary or just business income, you need to split down the different expense categories. And the reason I have savings and investments first is because I've said the first thing that you need to do whenever you get your money is to save and invest, right? So in our scenario of someone who has 70,000, you can split your money however you please, all right? For example, you can have 5,000 in an emergency fund, like I said. You can also have like 10K in a money market fund. And in my opinion, a money market fund is not an investment, it's just a saving platform that will cushion you against inflation, but we will always get back to that, okay? So in our scenario, if you already save 15K, and then let's assume you have debts, okay? You probably took a bank loan some time back that you need to pay, and hypothetically speaking, you pay 10K every month. So that is something that you cannot evade. So if you pay 10K, and then maybe somewhere along the road in the middle of the month you realize, oh, I do not have money. So you go to your mobile apps and borrow like 5K. This is also something you need to pay. You realize that 15K has gone to saving, 15K has gone to debt repayment. So you're already over and beyond your budget of 21,000. Okay. Then after this, the next thing you need to do is to pay your mandatory bills. And your mandatory bills are those things you can't do without. This could include rent, food, transport, internet, electricity, those things that are must-haves. One rule of the thumb here is that always for rent, ensure that your expenditure does not exceed 25% of your net income. So assuming that you earn 70K, your rent should never exceed 17,500, okay? Because this is something that you'll always need to incur. And I promise you, the day that you do not have rent, your landlord is going to lock your door. They will not care for how many months you've lived there or how often you've been paying. So long as you're not able to pay, then you move out, right? So always make sure that your rent never exceeds 25% of your net income, okay? And then the thing with mandatory bills is that you really can't do much about them. You need to spend them. So this should come in and then later on, now we go to your wants, givings, and miscellaneous. These are things such as wardrobes, wardrobe change, entertainment, family giving. It could include offertory, So these are the good things. There are things that are good to have, but they're not a must-have. For example, when you talk of a wardrobe change, this is not something that you need to do every other month, okay? So assuming you budget for it 2,000, and then because all work without play makes Jack a dull boy, you set aside 2,000 for entertainment, then you're probably a firstborn. You have siblings to take care of, or you probably have a sick parent, or we all have different dynamics. You end up spending 13,000 on them. So you see, on your wants, you've spent 13k. On your mandatory expenditure, you've spent 33,700. Then on your savings and debt repayments, you've spent 30k. In total, your expenditure ends up being 76,700, which is way above what you're earning, right? That means you're already operating at a deficit. You know what this means? You're going to be living paycheck to paycheck. You're perpetually going to be broke, right? You will perpetually need money. You'll be borrowing from your friends and then they see you and run away. So this is what we are trying to avoid. If you belong to this category, this video is meant for you, right? So let us look at a different way that you can approach this budgeting to ensure that you have surplus, which then you can use for investment, or rather just to do the things that you love. For example, if you're in employment and that is not your ultimate goal, remember God has given you that as a step to move you to your next level, okay? So you need to do it and to do it diligently. So again, we're still going to use the 50-30-20 rule, but this time round, we're going to be more frugal in how we are living and how we are spending and see how that makes a difference for us, okay? So again, one thing that I want us to take home is not unless you're taking debt for an investment or something that's going to give you a return, you should avoid debt at all costs. And the reason being, you will always pay interest on debt. And these interests keep changing, right? So if you take a debt that you probably take it for your usual expenditure, say for example, you see that's not money you're going to get back yet, you're required to pay interest on that. So if you're not taking debt for investment purposes, then avoid debt at all costs, okay? So if you are this person and this time round you did not take a mobile app loan, yeah, and the only debt you have is a bank loan, then you see you have quote unquote a saving of 5,000, which you can now use for other things. All right, for example, let's say you want to start a business. Let's say you probably love interior design. Okay, now that 5k that you are paying mobile app loans, you can now set it aside for a sinking fund. Okay, now you see this 5k that we saved here is now used on top here, right? When we move to our mandatory bills, for example, rent, you do not need to use the entire 25%. Okay? For instance, you can get a good house at a cheaper price. For example, instead of paying 17,500, you can pay 15,000. Better yet, even 13,000. Again, 19,000. If you can live in a house that costs you 15k, here you've saved 2,500, all right? You can decide, okay, this 2,500, because I do not want to waste it, maybe I'm in business. I want to open a pension fund for myself, right? Because I keep saying you're probably going to be alive for a longer period than you've been working. And if at the time that you're working, you are in debt and you're also broke, then imagine what will happen when you're no longer working, all right? So you need to have like a retirement fund. Or it doesn't have to be retirement. Remember when you said you probably want to own a house? You can decide to have a home ownership fund, okay? You see, so remember nature abhors a vacuum. If you save with a purpose. For something like internet, for example, we say you do not need to use an expensive service provider. Because if you're in employment, for example, you're only home for very few hours. Most of your time is spent at work, and at work you already have Wi-Fi, right? That means you can use a cheaper service provider. The ones that I've highlighted in yellow are the things, then you can play around with to save. For this 500 bob that you've saved, you can decide, okay, maybe this one I'm going to save into my circle or into shares, or just something else. Just make sure that for any saving that you're making, you're doing it for a reason so that you don't end up wasting money. Then remember when I told you to pay yourself first. You see, when you pay yourself first and you put money in a place where it's not easily accessible, because in all honesty, the one thing that will make you succeed in budgeting is discipline. You need to discipline yourself. That come what may. If you've set aside money for emergency, if it is not an emergency does not mean that someone else's lack of planning now becomes emergency. That should never be the case for you. Emergencies, for example, you're sick and maybe your insurance is not working. You need to get well, okay? If you have set aside money, for example, in your money market, that is not you you're saving it for a purpose, right? Maybe you want to go on a vacation. Then you're not going to touch this money because someone else has decided that they did not plan for their finances well, and then you need to come through for them, okay? This is where family giving comes in. You see, now from 9,000, maybe you only have 4,000 to give. You've saved 5K, okay? So this 5K, you can decide, maybe they have seen Sako ABC pays a dividend of 20%, and that is your money working for you because that is just money you've given someone. Then they're going to give you a return, yet you do nothing. Okay? So these are some of the things that you need to do. If you do this, then you see, let's go back up here. You see, this person, they earn 70K, they only spend 66,700. And even with the spending of 66,700, they already have set aside money to start a business. They've set aside a retirement fund. They have an emergency fund. You know, they have other investments, or let me call it other savings. You can decide to distribute your money. And they even have an excess of 3,300. Now you can decide, maybe I want a wardrobe change, or maybe I want to take another course. So at the end of the day, what I want us to take home is, one, always pay yourself first, okay? Two, avoid debt as much as you can if you're not taking it to help you generate more income. But if you're taking it to help you generate more income, then by all means, go ahead, all right? Three, nature does abhor vacuum. If you're saving, then save with a goal in mind. Four, do not put all your eggs in one basket. And here, this is a personal opinion. Money markets are not an investment; they're just a savings plan that will help to shield you from inflation. I'm sorry. When you have this done, now we can start discussing about investment strategies, because now you actually do have money to invest. But initially, you are using all your money to pay your debts and on all your mandatory expenditure, and then you're living paycheck to paycheck. So again, you can go tailor this to your needs and see how much you have left. And now we can start discussing about investment strategies. I hope that this has been helpful, and until next time, bye.